As we start this morning, I want to start us with a little bit of a different question. So this is going to seem sort of out there, but it's going to lead into where we're headed this morning. I want you to give me the name of maybe the last customer that you talked to, or somebody recent. It should be somebody that's recent on your mind. So, I went to see Miss Ernestine.
I got a 6-hour Zoom meeting today. I'm super excited.
And I want you to give me like 20 seconds about this customer. I'm not interested in their floor. I'm not interested in their project. I want you to tell me, give me a first name of the customer that you went to see, and just something about that customer. And let's see, Dave Lee, let me start with you.
All right. So, yeah, I met Ryan Olson out at the veterinary clinic about 2 miles from my house. And after a few minutes of conversation, he brought up the fact that his 1-year wedding anniversary and his honeymoon was coming up the next week. He was flying out to Maui. I was fortunate enough to be in Maui about a week after I lost my last job. And so we probably had about a 20-minute conversation about what to do out there, where to go. I was like, the road to Hana, you get the black sand beaches. He's like, I get motion sickness. I ain't doing that. But we were actually texting back and forth while he was on his honeymoon about not floors, but stuff to do in Maui. There's a little farmer's market, like a swap meet out there. That was really cool. And then he was like, hey, man, I made the road to Hana. I took my Dramamine, put the patch behind my ear, took and risked my life down that road with the locals that drive like absolute bats out of hell. It was a great time, man. Thanks for your advice. And he's like, when we get this project going, I've taken the other 2 quotes that I've gotten, they're out. You're in. Nice. I also brought up the fact that with the chairs that they had, switching his chair wheels to the rollerblade chair wheels. If you haven't seen those things, it's on Amazon. They're $15 for a 5-pack. I said, let's do that. You're going to provide, you'll protect your floors a lot longer. He was like, no one's ever said that to me. So that was fun.
Nice. Richard Weaver.
So I would go with Darren and Miranda Jones. They great people. Their sons, one of them is very close to the age of my son, who's graduating from high school and heading off to college, and they're doing the college tours and everything like that I just went through. And so we were talking about that, and turns out that that Miranda works for BP, which my wife's company actually makes the signs for BP. So we sat and talked about that for a while. And now things have just gone from 1 job to 2 jobs to 3 jobs. And it's just because we keep talking.
Nicely done. Jesse, how about you? The name of a customer, and tell me something about that customer.
I spoke with Mike Wong on Tuesday, one of my appointments, or it was Tuesday. It was one of my appointments. They moved here from China about 18 years ago. They have 2 kids, 2 daughters, and 3 corgi dogs. So they were yapping all day long.
Nice.
And they had a really cool.
What brought them here from China, or what if they started here? What got them to China?
They started in China and then they came over here. They both work for United. They've been they've been flight attendants in United for over 20 years.
Nice.
And they had a really cool, I don't know what it is about Chinese people. They have like the coolest most random tech in their house. When I walked up to the door, there was literally a light that says, sorry, there's nobody here to talk to you today, and blah. And it's just every time you walk by, it says that.
I like it.
One of the coolest things I've ever seen. Then, they got fish tanks, they got water fountains everywhere, they got this, that, and
nice.
Cool people.
John, how about you?
Bob Silva. Bob was unwrapping flowers with his wife that their kids had sent for Mother's Day. There was a certain twang in his voice, and I just said, "Where in Mass are you from?" And he said, "Medford," which is a little bit north of Boston. And he's just a really nice old man that wanted to recarpet the rather large office space that his wife, who was tiny. I mean, she was tiny. My wife's tiny, but this woman was like midget tiny. But she was perfect, and a sweet lady and a grandmother. And they didn't want what they had in there, and he was willing to do anything.
Hold on now. I'm gonna give you the big X because I don't care about the floor. I want to know about them.
Well, this was a Mother's Day gift.
Okay, good.
And his about him was that nothing was too good for his wife.
Love
it. That's what I got out of them. They're just really sweet people.
Nice. How about Azam?
I recently met Miss Gabriella and her husband John. They recently moved from Colorado. They just purchased their home, and we did their flooring. She works at the Postal Service. He's military retired. We talked about the mountains in Colorado, and when it snows and how people go and skiing, and we shared some of that. And the nice nature over there. And I asked them how they like Georgia, and because they're new here, and pointed some areas where they could go and do their shopping, and and stuff like that. So we shared a lot of information.
Okay, good. Let's see, David Tanner.
Morning, team. We had an appointment with Margot, and Margot, very, very nice lady, but we started chatting about where she works, where I work, blah, blah, blah. And she loves the same Thai food restaurant I love here in town. It's a little tiny place, hole in the wall. And then it went into a huge discussion about food. Her husband got involved, and we chatted for quite a while. Her husband, I have been here, living here for a long time, as I consider, but her husband's been here much longer, and which was really nice because we just chatted about Vegas when we first moved here, and how much it's changed and come along. Lovely couple with a really warmth, welcoming kind of attitude to their home. So it was very, very sweet.
Nice. Josefina, how about for you? Let Josefina find her mute button.
I'm sorry, hearing. Hi, everybody. Okay, I met Katie. I went to her house twice. She's a really nice person. We have been talking. She has 2 kids and a husband. He's trying to, he moved from a bigger house to this one that is smaller. And she worked hard from Monday till Friday. And on Saturday, she's trying to do some, cleaning and put everything, all the mess, do things, put the things in order. So the 2 times that I went to her house, she was doing this. And we ended up talking about Marie Kondo and the system, of keeping the house clean and everything in order. So she's a really nice girl.
Nice. Let's see. How about Dan Adkins?
We just got back from the house of William Alexis, which is an install we've been working on for the past few days. He and his family are relatively recent immigrants from Haiti. He is a nurse of some sort at a local retirement facility. He and his family have now 4 children. All of them were born premature, so they were just able to bring their newest baby home last week, although she was born in early January. So we've been trying to do this install as quietly and as courteously as possible. That has not gone according to plan. It's my first major install and a lot of tuition being paid, Arlen. But through it all, William has been very gracious and very understanding, and has taught me a lot about, or reminded me a lot about, I guess you could say, the immigrant experience. They're just so grateful to have a home, and they're grateful to have a house that they can be proud of. And they're loving that Stokeman Oyster Oak. Love, love, love it. So
Nice. Let's see, Anthony, a recent customer that you've met, and tell me something about the customer.
Recent customer I met was Laura and Bob Schneider. The Snyders are big avid baseball fans, so they have season tickets to the Dodgers every year, Lakers. They also have 3 sons. One is living overseas. All of them are grown. Barbara is a corporate attorney, corporate law attorney. And Bob works from home. I'm not sure what he really does, but they love traveling. They're actually taking a trip and going to Spain this upcoming week. They've been living out of their house for about a month now, doing a complete remodel.
Nice. Nice. Clayton.
Hey, I am super sorry, but I don't know what the question was. I was doing it was a confirmation for an appointment that I have tomorrow morning.
No worries. No worries. So I'm looking for the name of a recent customer that you've met, somebody that's fresh on your mind. And I want to know a little bit about what you learned about them. I'm not interested in the floor. I'm not interested in the project. I'm interested in knowing something about the customer that you met.
Okay, well, I'll just use the one that I just got off the phone with. I did an appointment confirmation with her. And sometimes those go, hey, just confirmed an appointment, yada, yada, yada. But then we started in on conversation a little bit. Just kind of building that rapport with her. And, I found out that she's got a cat and a dog. She's got joint custody of a golden retriever that she gets every other week. Not sure how that works, but she also has 3 children, ages 20, 14, and 5. And she also is a military veteran.
Nice. Nice. Alyssa.
So good morning, everybody. The first person that comes to mind is Julie and Ryan Crafton. They're a husband and wife team, and they are super cool people. So they've traveled all over the world, Greece, Rome, like any place that you could dream of going. They've pretty much gone. They have recently gotten into hosting the Chiefs Hockey League and other teams' hockey leagues at their house. And Julie is so giddy about it. She's eager to make the meals for the boys, she loves getting to know them. She even lets the parents come stay at her house, and she's moved into this giant house so that she can do all of these things. So she's a huge sports fan. We kind of connected on the fact that, I had scholarships. She works with these boys and helps them, maintain their scholarships and do these sorts of things all the time. And just this cool experience. The other thing that we talked about is I have a dog. She doesn't have a dog, but she babysits dogs all the time because she doesn't take credit as one of the founders, but she is friends with the founder of Rover, and the two of them put their minds together and came up with the idea for that app. So she actually hosts animals on Rover, and we connected over an animal that she hosts regularly that can't walk on its own and things like that. Well, my German Shepherd kind of has some of the same mobility issues within her back legs. So we were actually able to not only share flooring experiences with her, but I was able to share personal doctors and homeopathic remedies that have pretty much kept my dog alive as resources for her and her client. So she was just an awesome person to work with.
Nice. Good stuff. Let's see, where are we at? Ashley, if you can do this without going in the ditch.
I can. Might be a little toddler squealing in the background. So my most recent customer experience was with John and Rosemary Connolly, a lovely, sweet couple who have been married for 50 years, and this was their first home they bought together 50 years ago. So they had quite a lot to say about all the family celebrations they've hosted in the home. Their daughter, where she lives with her husband and 2 daughters up in the Bay Area. They told me about a trip that they were planning to go up and see them soon. And their littlest granddaughter was about to go through her confirmation, so they were itching to get their floors done in time for that, so that they could host a little celebration for that. So it's pretty sweet.
Nice. Timothy, how about you?
Good morning. I guess one of the recent ones that sticks out in my mind is there's a lady by the name of Maritz, and she's from France. Her last name's Wilkinson, her married name. But what was really unique about her was that she was a devout Jew, and she had a lot of trouble in corporate America. Her mom owned a hat shop in Syracuse, and she started making hats. So she is Hollywood's hat maker. She's done the hats on Titanic, Indiana Jones's hat, a whole bunch of other things like that. But she has about 15 grandkids. She won a pool, believe it or not, at the state fair last year. And she's just a really unique person, super nice, and very, very successful. And I think the thing I remember the most about her was she kept trying to get me to tell her what to do. And I stuck with, this is one where my owner was on his way, but I had about a half hour with her. And I kept going back to, what's your vision for the room? And, what does it look like when it's done? And, by doing that, I didn't realize she was testing me. But we got a review the very next morning, a real strong review on the fact that we didn't push her in a direction like all the other people did that were in her home. And she hadn't even started to do business with us, but the review said she's looking forward to it. So
interesting.
That was a nice one.
Nice. Amelia, how about you?
Oh, I'm parking now. Just took kids to school, so so I would say one that I connected the most with would probably be a lady named Shanaz Schreier. And when I walked in, it was a real quiet setting, but she owns a daycare, which I have kids, so I typically do connect fairly well with others. And I found out that, she was typically was just a stay-at-home mom, is what it was. And eventually her kids grew up, started having kids. She would watch her grandkids. They grew up. And then kind of, left the nest. And she's like, no, I need more kids. And so she opened her daycare. And then COVID hit right when that happened. So she had to stay on pause. But then she jumped right back into it, opened up her daycare. Some kids are on the disabled side too. So it's nice that she's accommodating that for those parents that really it is a lot harder to have. And I do have a son with special needs. So it really touched my heart too, that she was willing to go above and beyond for these kids. But what was interesting for me is she comes from San Jose. And she actually wants all solid hardwood floors. And it's crazy, right? Because you have this daycare. Well, she raised over 20 kids on a golden acacia floor. And she's like, it looked beautiful, So, with all the kids, she manages to keep things really elegant and nice. And same with her home now. It's a really clean, nice, elegant look. You wouldn't even know that they run a daycare in there, and yet those kids are just there and so comfortable. And so it was just very heartwarming in there, and we connected a lot on just the type of person she is and how charismatic she is with everything.
Nice. All right, Armando, headed your way.
My last customer, Roy, So really, when I came into their home, he was wearing a shirt for a company, and I asked him, what is the company about? And he was telling me that he has a company that they maintain the conveyor belts for the luggage for the airport, Orlando International Airport, which is one of the busiest airports in the United States. And that leading to him like really passionate about, the whole work that he does, and showing me diagrams of the miles and miles or conveyor belts and how the whole system works, and then how tragic it is and how crazy when one of them breaks and they only have seconds to fix it, because they could, really throw away the arrivals and departures from the airport, and how chaotic it could be. And I was like, he was telling me about the training that they go through and everything, and I was like, I'm gonna use that, which I did.
Nice. All right, Roland.
No customers, got nothing.
Oh, yeah, you do. You've had a customer named Jackie. You've had a customer named Grant. Come on, you've got somebody.
So the thing I learned about the Jackie's invisible customer is that likes to go to the same Sanibel Island every year in Florida for the past 40 years or 39 years, something, and likes the consistency of being able to go back to the same place and know what they're going to get and enjoy the experience.
Okay, all right, good. Michael Forte.
Yeah, no real customers, but done some mock proposals with family and friends, and I guess my most recent one is a guy named DJ Johnson, and we talked about golf and the Braves, and we golf and go to games a lot together, and reminisced about his bachelor party that was about a year ago, Memorial Day in Charleston. So really just talked about some of the same stuff we always talk about, but hope to get some real customers soon though.
There you go. All right, I don't see Sam. I'm hoping he's close by and he can hear me. I'm going to John Hester while Sam finds his way back to the computer. John?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Met a nice lady, Mrs. Lowry, and immediately walked in the door and smelled this great toffee smell, toffee with a T. And so we bonded over that because I love my toffee. And she has her last name Lowry. I hadn't heard since my childhood and where I grew up in North Carolina. So I asked her about that because the Lowrys that I knew were Cherokee Indian. And she confirmed that her husband was from North Carolina, but she wasn't sure if he had any Cherokee Indian in him. So that was a good little conversation. And then she was a graphic designer, no pets. She works from home. She had 2 water leaks in the last couple of years. So that was the reason why we were there. So it was a good little warm up.
Nice. The only time I've ever heard the last name Lowry was in Bad Boys. Mike Lowry. Anyway. All right, let's see. Patrick.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning.
So, kind of missed what you were saying, but I'm listening to everyone else's story.
Yeah, so a recent customer, and tell me something about the customer. I'm not interested in the floor. I'm interested in the customer. So
Okay.
Tell me something about the customer.
So a woman named Penny who is living in the area, and we got in there and we were talking about that she had gone to University of Houston, where a couple of my brothers had gone to University of Houston. So we were talking about that. And then she kind of clicked it with she maybe looked at my card again and clicked at the last name. And she goes, "Oh, I think I know your brother. What's your brother's name?" And, I told him, it turned out that she didn't know him. It was like almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
Connected. And she goes, "Oh," and then she said, "Oh, how well you know my brother?" It's like, oh, we dated. So.
Oh, let me introduce you to your niece.
Exactly. So I asked my brother, I'm like, hey, you know her very well? Because he met his wife in college also. And so I'm like, I met this woman, Penny. Do you know who she is? And she goes, oh yeah, I know who she is. And I said, well, how do you know her? And he just didn't go much further to say, we were intimate. That's all he said.
Oh man.
So
all right. Good stuff.
So
You
Penny,
never know,
nonetheless, Penny's a little. I think she's a little embarrassed that, that maybe Dan told stories or something, but I don't know. I told her he didn't say much.
I love it. All right. Okay. Did I miss anybody except Sam? I don't think so. All right. Let me shift over to the whiteboard. Thank you for sharing all of that. That does have an impact on what we're about to do. All right, I want to start this morning and spend a little bit of time with you guys thinking about personalities, okay? And you guys have all had a chance to meet customers. You've had a chance to meet people in your lives, whether they were customers or otherwise. I am by no means a personality expert. I am not a psychologist. I'm an engineer, for crying out loud. But I find the human mind, and in my older age, I have found the psychology of people to be just absolutely fascinating. Absolutely fascinating, okay? And so a lot of your psychologists today have landed on, I think most of you have probably heard of the Myers-Briggs test or the Enneagrams. Those are very popular on Instagram, and people like to take those tests and see what they are. And that's fun. That's a lot of fun. But psychologists have sort of zoned in on 5, maybe 6 personality traits. And I want to spend some time thinking about these personality traits this morning. So we'll just dive into the first one. The first one is openness. Openness. So how open somebody is. And one thing to note on every one of these, I'm just going to do this one time. But you can have a low openness, you can have a high openness. Most people kind of, if you think about it, it's not a once and done type of thing. I mean, people kind of fall wherever they fall. And it's not a concrete thing, right? So what do I mean by openness? Well, typically, if you're high, if you've got a higher openness score, if you're more open, you're typically more open to try new things. All right, you're typically somebody that's focused on tackling new challenges. Challenges, yep, that's right. And you're happy to think about abstract concepts. So typically, people that are very open, if you're very open, you can think of these people as being high, they really, really like change. On the other hand, if you're fairly low, then maybe you don't like change. Okay? If somebody is really, really open, they like to try new things. If you're not particularly open, maybe you don't like new things, okay? I'm not going to take this in a political, I don't mean this in a political way, but typically somebody that's high in openness is really, really creative. And again, I don't mean this word in a political sense. low tends to be more conservative. In other words, I like things to be stable in the way that they are. Now, there's not one that's better than the other. This isn't a judgment about what's better, one's better than another. One personality type is better than another personality type, because you need people in society that are open to change and wanting to do things and try new things. And at the same time, you need people that are also willing to set some ground rules and, keep sort of a stable ground. And a good mix is great. So just for fun, okay, if you had to rate yourself on a 1 to 10 scale, in the chat box, just throw out there, this isn't a scientific study, but if you would throw out there in the chat box, where would you fall, 1 to 10, on an openness scale? And what you're going to find is that the people that are willing to go out and throw a number out there are the people that are going to give themselves a higher number. If somebody considers themselves a 1 or a 2, they're probably not even going to bother putting it in the chat box. I mean, it's just the way it is, okay? Because they're not terribly open to trying something new and to sort of putting themselves out there, okay? Now, if you knew that the person that you were talking to, when Jesse was talking to Mike Long from China, if Jesse picked up a sense that Mike was very creative, very open to trying new things. Well, first, let me ask you this. If you're and feel free to take yourselves off mute and answer this, how would you know in a warm-up, when you're getting to know the customer, how could you pick up, what are some clues that you could pick up that would tell you that this customer is maybe higher or lower in terms of openness, is more creative or less creative, likes change or doesn't like change? How would you pick up on those things?
Based on their decor and pictures on the wall.
Body language.
Language and body language. If nobody on here has ever taken a DISC assessment, you should really do it.
Sharing, how much they're sharing. I think people that are high openness are high sharers. Type of house they're in.
Okay. Type of house. Okay. All right. So now let's think about this for a moment. If I'm in somebody's house that's really, really, they're really way over here, right? So try to make a star. They're high openness. How am I going to change the way that I communicate with them, particularly in the company story and in the product presentation? How am I going to communicate with them differently than maybe somebody that is a lower score on openness?
Going to be more excited.
You need to be more upbeat. You need to be on their level. Somebody that is very conservative and doesn't want change, they want specifics. They don't want all kinds of options. They want things to be very simplified.
Somebody who
And how would
has
you
a creative
change the way that
mindset.
how would you change the way that you would communicate with somebody that was highly open?
Well, you would throw out suggestions of some kind of wow factor.
Okay. All right. So where I'm going with this, and we're going to go through all 5 of these personality traits. Okay. So where I'm going with this is, when you're in your warm-up, this gives you a great opportunity to absorb all this information about the customer and then change the way that you communicate with them. I'm not asking you to change who you are. You are who you are. But you can change the way that you present the information to a customer based on the way that you think that they're going to perceive it the best.
speaking their language.
Exactly, you're speaking their language. So if I pick up on the fact that this is somebody that's highly open, they're very creative, then they're probably the ones that are going to be interested in looking at something that's very different than what they have today. And I might focus on how this floor is different than the floor that they currently have. I might focus on the things that make it different and new and exciting. On the other hand, if I'm talking to somebody that I feel is very, doesn't like change, doesn't enjoy new things, that's just not where their personality is, then I might talk about how the floor that we're talking about is maybe a little better than what they have, but it retains some of the things about the current floor that they like. So like in step 2, when I'm asking questions about what do you like about your current floor and what do you dislike about your current floor, if I'm talking to somebody that's highly open, I'm probably going to focus more on the things that they dislike so that I can show how the new floor is different than what they currently have. But if I'm talking to somebody that's not so open, then I'm probably going to focus more of my words on showing them how the new floor, although maybe it's better, it's certainly new, but it retains those qualities that they like about their current floor. All right, so we're just taking this to the next level. All right, so what is the next personality? And by the way, these are really easy to remember because they end up spelling the word ocean. And then there's a new one that's out there that people add with an H. So the second one, easy to say, hard to spell. Come on board. Catch up. Conscientiousness. All right. So somebody that's got a very high conscientiousness. If they've got a very high conscientiousness, they spend a lot of time preparing, okay? So these are people they're planners. These are people that are preparing in advance, right? These are people that want to finish tasks, right? They have a to-do list and they're very focused on getting that to-do list. They really like having a set schedule.
My wife.
Could be. I'll leave that to you. These are people that pay attention to detail. Okay? If there's somebody that you're talking to that's fairly low, a low one, they don't want a schedule. So for example, if you're talking to somebody about their last vacation, so let's see, who was it that was talking about vacation? So Clayton was with, I forget the name of I don't think you gave me the name of the customer. No, that's not the one.
Jessica is who I was with.
Who was it that was just out of vacation? Oh no, David Lee was talking about the guy that went to Hawaii, right? Okay, so, is this a person that, they plan this vacation to Hawaii and they've got every event planned. They're going to be there a week and they can tell you exactly what they're going to be doing at 2:35 on Thursday. Okay, well, that's somebody that's very conscientious versus the person that says, we spun a wheel and it landed on Hawaii and that's where we're going and I have no idea what we're going to do or where we're going to stay. We're going to show up at the airport and figure it out when we get there. Right? So where does it, typically somebody that's low can be messy. They don't have to be, but they're not that terribly concerned about stuff going back where it belongs. They typically will procrastinate. Doesn't have to be, right? So again, this tends to be on a spectrum. So if you would take a moment and in the chat box, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you consider yourself in terms of conscientiousness? Are you more of a planner or no schedule? Do you like to get things finished, or you're not so bothered by it? I'll tell you, part of the reason I don't sleep is because I can't stand having an inbox. I can't stand having tasks that go undone. So yeah, I would be highly conscientious. I'd be an 8, 9, 10 on that scale. Somebody's stuck in the waiting room. Let's see. Where's that? There we go. All right.
Hey guys.
So now think about your last customer. Okay. So let's see. Tim, you had a chance to meet with Marie. Based on what you got to know about her, where would you think she, I don't need a number, but would you think she was high or low? Would you think she was higher conscientious or lower conscientious?
I think when it comes to work, she was high, but I think in her home, it was two different switches. So in her home, she was very relaxed and not about the details, very carefree, wouldn't let us take our shoes off. So yeah, but at work, I think she's known for the exact opposite.
Okay, good. Let's see, Alyssa, who were you with? You were with Julie and Ryan. Where would you put them? High, low, conscientious?
I would say that Julie is probably very high conscientious because she has to follow a strict schedule in order to be able to host the boys. They have to eat by a certain time, have a certain curfew. So she makes sure that she's very on top of things. But I would say in her work life, right? In other people's life, the position that she play matters, and she knows that. But I would say in her personal life, her and her husband don't always see very eye to eye because he thinks that some things can wait and she doesn't. So I would say that as a duo, they probably fall more on like the 4 or 5 range.
Okay. All right, good. And yes, it's very common for one partner to be one way and another partner to be another way. Opposites attract. So that's good. All right. So if you're talking with Julie, okay, what are some things during your company story, during your product presentation, what are some things that you want to make sure you emphasize with her, knowing that she's a conscientious person?
Well, being that they're both there, just really making sure that, they wanted to understand their timeline. They're trying to get specifically this project done before season starts for the boys because they can't really have construction going on while the boys are there. So really making sure to go through the installation process and identifying timeline, really making sure that during product, you're being very conscious of like, is this durable for hockey shoes and, 5 boys to come tromping in here at a time and drop all of their bags. So, the durability of a product and the timeline that they were focused on would probably be the key points within the slide to get to.
I agree with you 100%, right? My mind went immediately to when I get to the installation video, when I get to where we're talking about the install, even the slide that talks about how we earn our stars, I'm going to focus on the installation piece, and I'm going to focus on how we're going to communicate with you, and we're going to make sure that this installation happens on the timeline that we agree, right? Yep. So if I'm talking to somebody that's highly conscientious, this set schedule is a big deal. Detail is going to be a big deal. On the other hand, if I'm talking to somebody where schedules don't really seem to matter and they're not a big fan of structure, then I'm not going to focus on those things because it's not going to land, right? I talk to somebody that they're just not interested in that kind of stuff, and I start talking about how we're going to be really, really tight on our timelines and whatever else. While that might be important to me, it's not that terribly important to them, so it just doesn't land, and it doesn't feel like we're connecting. Good. All right, so the E, this tends to be people's favorite, right? Introvert versus extrovert. So just to make the E fit, we call it extraversion. Okay, and so you know, we tend to think on the low side. You tend to think of an introvert. On the high side, you tend to think of an extrovert. So if somebody is high extroversion, this person absolutely loves to be the center of attention. Absolutely loves to meet new people. Absolutely loves it when they can find a way to make new friends. This one, the way I think of introvert versus extrovert is, here, you know, you've got your person here, right? An extrovert gets energy from other people. An introvert, it takes energy to be around other people. Okay? It's not that one's good or bad, just like the rest of these. Typically, an introvert feels exhausted after they've been around a bunch of people. So it doesn't mean that they can't be around a bunch of people. It just means that it takes energy. It really takes energy to do that. Absolutely hates making small talk. I will tell you the worst thing that you can do with an introvert is to make a bunch of small talk. Introverts actually do like having conversations with people, but they want to have a deeper conversation with somebody that's actually meaningful. Extroverts just want to talk about anything. It doesn't matter, right? So again, it's not that there's a good or a bad, it's just a different way of speaking. So if you were to use the chat box again, where would you consider yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? Introvert versus extrovert. And while you're doing that, full transparency, I would rate myself as probably a 2 or 3. It might surprise you based on this class and the role that I have in this company. I'm actually fairly introverted. It's not that I don't like people. I do like people. But it is exhausting for me to be around a class of people all day. You're going to find that, you know, when we meet up at convention and you see, you know, everybody hangs out at the bar, well, I'm going to go and hang out at the bar because, quite frankly, one, I want to be around you guys and I want to meet you guys and have conversation with you. And two, quite frankly, it's part of the job. So we'll go ahead and throw that check mark out there. But you're also going to find that I'm not going to be the one that's out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, simply because I've done all the small talk I can do in about 20 seconds, and that's it. I'm done. I'm ready to move on. All right, so let's take another customer. John, you are with Bob. You are with Bob from Massachusetts. Where would you put Bob on this scale?
Bob was very friendly. Pretty much, like I said, nothing was too good for his wife. It was Mother's Day, everything. I would put him in about an 8. I mean, he was older. They were older. You know, the product and everything was shifting towards, you know, conservative things, and the house was set up in a conservative way. And you can see there was a lot of time over the years that they'd set it up their way. And I would just, you know, I'd say about a 7 or an 8 at the peak, an 8.
Okay. So how would you guys, pitch your company's story? How would you converse with somebody that was high in extrovert? As a high extrovert, how would you want to deliver your company story?
Well, the choice, the universal choice in the product, and the amount of things that we bring to the table, the entirety of the project being handled, and walking them through that garden. That was an important thing for them to know, that there was so much that we were bringing to the table, that there wasn't much to think about other than the dream of getting this done.
Okay, good. What else? How would you, how would you guys talk to somebody that was an introvert versus an extrovert, if you picked up on that?
I would say making with the extrovert, kind of bringing more of them into the presentation, and, you know, repeating stuff that they had said, little bits of their personality and their life into the presentation to make it more about them and their story.
Nice. I like that. Because they want to be the center of attention, right? Good. All right. What would you do for maybe for an introvert?
Well, me personally, usually try to go hammer home the single point of contact, the fact that, you know, we're going to run with the job. They don't have to, you know, deal with all the different elements directly. That's a big one for me.
Nice. Right? And so in a lot of your businesses, maybe you're not the single point of contact. Maybe in your business, it's a design associate, and then you have a production manager that they're going to talk to. But it's still a limited, maybe instead of single, maybe I'll call it a limited contact, right? So before I had anything to do with Floor Coverings International, I actually had carpet put in by Lowe's. And I literally had to talk to 17 different people to get this project done. And it's, you know, what a pain in the butt, especially for somebody that's typically introverted. I don't want to talk to 17 people. I'll talk to one, I'll talk to two. That makes my life a lot easier, okay? So as an introvert, I would love it if you explained to me that during the installation process, you don't even have to talk to the installers if you don't want to. We're going to take care of everything, and you can do your thing, and we'll take care of the floors for you and take that off your shoulders. All right, so the fifth letter in the word ocean is A, or excuse me, the fourth letter in the word ocean is A. And this is, we're going to get into some strangeness with the words here. Agreeableness. Okay, agreeableness. So what do I mean? If somebody has a high sense of agreeable, and by the way, that doesn't mean that the opposite is disagreeable. You typically think of this as, if I think of high, agreeable, low, we tend to think of competitive. Not so much disagreeable, but competitive, okay? There's probably several of you that would actually score low on agreeableness just because you're very competitive. Okay, well, that's great. So typically, if somebody's high, yes, they do have a lot of care for other people. Okay, a lot of times they enjoy helping and contributing to the happiness of others. And you're like, wait a minute, dude, you just told me I'm not that. Okay, it's not that you're not that, but typically you think of somebody that's in this zone as others first. Okay, and if you think of somebody that's lower on agreeableness, this tends to be somebody that's more competitive. And this is going to sound ugly, and it's not meant to sound ugly, but this is more of a me first. And you can think of this in the context of, hey, you know, I'm going to win. Okay, so in that sense, I'm not necessarily, yes, I want to help you as long as I win. Yes, I'm going to do what I can to make sure your life is great as long as I win, right? So there's a little bit of a, this can be a little bit tricky. Oftentimes you don't see people that are really, really high or really, really low. A lot of times this tends to be, just like some of these others, it tends to be fluid. This is how I am at work versus this is how I am at home. But there is a natural state that we're normally in. So this is the way I'm naturally wired. So think about this, and where would you consider yourself? More high, agreeable, it's always about others, or low, this is, I'm going to win. And now let's go to, let's see. Let's go to David. You met Margot. And where would you consider Margot in this?
Margot and Jason, her husband, are great examples of everything you're discussing, because they both at work, I'm a bit stressed only because I know I'm unorganized and I need to work on that about myself. So at work, I freak out only because I know if I don't, I will forget. But Jason and Margot literally live at work and at home exactly how you're laying this out. Margot was high agreeableness, open to chatty. I think with somebody introvert or low agreeableness, you keep it less chatty, stick to the facts. And you could literally see that in the two of them.
Nice. All right. This is, I don't like the in ocean. I don't, just because I don't like the way the word is done. So I'm going to change it, but the official word is like neurotic, okay? Well, so the problem with that word is that we think of people that have neurotic behavior as, well, that's horrible. Okay, so, but it fits ocean. So I'm going to change this. And let me explain what I mean by sensitivity. So somebody that's high, somebody that has this personality trait highly, typically has more stress. Okay? This is the person that is a worrier. Sometimes that's a good thing. Okay? Sometimes this is the person that looks out and foresees things that can go wrong before they go wrong. So I picture, let's just say that we were going to go on a little sailing trip. We go down to Myrtle Beach, and we hire somebody to take us out on a little sailboat. Well, somebody that's high in sensitivity, I'll just use that word, they're going to look at that sailboat and they're going to see every little thing that could go wrong. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's a way of making sure that people are safe, right? But they're going to be more anxious, and they're going to see the things that could possibly go wrong, okay? On the other hand, you've got the low one, no worries. It doesn't matter. Hop on, let's go, okay? I don't know about you. If I go to a Six Flags or some other established amusement park, I will ride any ride that's there. I have no problem. Put me on any roller coaster anywhere across the country, I'm there. I'm ready to go. But if you take me to the South Carolina State Fair and I see the rides that are put up by people that have 3 teeth in their head and they don't have a clue what a torque wrench is, I'm not getting on any of that stuff. All right, so that's just, that's where my head is, okay? So probably somewhere in between here. I see the things that could go wrong, and in some cases, I don't care, and we go for it anyway. In other cases, I'm going to be much more reserved. So where would you consider yourself on this scale? The worrywart, or if I were to go to personalities or TV characters, this is going to be Monk. Anybody that's ever watched that TV show. And way over here on the left-hand side, this is going to be Willie Nelson for many, many reasons.
Easy
No
on
cares
Willie.
in the world. All right. The only man that Snoop Dogg says has ever smoked him under the table. I'll let y'all figure that one out. All right. So, where would you consider yourself here? And let's pick one of your customers. So let's see, Dan, you've been working with William from Haiti. Where would you consider William?
He's up there. He's up there. He's over your shoulder. So I would say probably almost like an 8. Of course, he's got a lot going in his life right now. But all the installers have commented that he's not in their business. Like, what are you doing? Are you sure you're doing that right? But always around, and maybe it's curiosity, but you know how installers are, they don't really need that either. So,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. So guys, how are you going to adjust your language? How are you going to pitch to somebody when you realize that they're high on this scale versus low on this scale?
You want me to talk about William, or do you want somebody else to comment on a customer?
Start it, and then I'll open it up to everybody.
Sure. I mean, it was apparent at the beginning that I perceived it as trust issues. And maybe it is essentially trust issues. Recent immigrants, English is a second language, obviously very culturally unique in their neighborhood, to say the least. But that said, so my approach was to take it more slowly, to be more, I don't want to say therapeutic, but certainly consultative in my approach. Asked him to ask a lot of questions. But interestingly, once you turn a corner with folks like that, at least in my experience, and I'm an old guy, once you turn a corner with them, you're their guy. Once you achieve that level of trust, that's why this has been a stressful project, because we have had some things go wrong, and I don't want to feel like I'm abusing that trust. But
sure,
yeah,
no. Once they trust you, they don't want to have to go through this again with somebody else.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Because I'm neurotic, it drives me crazy too. So.
All right. So to review this, you've got people. Scale this down just a little bit, make it a little easier. All right. So you've got people, when you have a chance to get to know them, you're going to find some people are much more open to what you have to say, and others less so. You're going to find people that are much more conscientious, and some less so. Some are more extroverted and some are more introverted. Some are more agreeable and some are less agreeable or more competitive, and some are more neurotic or sensitive to what's going on, and some are less sensitive to what's going on. Now, here's your challenge. When you're doing a warm-up with somebody, can you start to identify where your customer fits? Okay? And I'm not trying to put people in a box. That's not the point. I'm not trying to put labels on people. I'm not trying to put people in a box. What I am trying to do is I am trying to put a strategy together for myself, trying to put a strategy together that says, you know, I just met so-and-so, and I realized that this person is highly open, is not so conscientious, is a real extrovert, is very agreeable, and is low sensitivity. And once I've understood that about the person, how am I going to adjust my company story, and how am I going to adjust my product pitch to match this person? I personally think, go ahead.
No, Arlen, please. I apologize for interrupting.
Go ahead, David.
I love this session because I think people don't focus enough on the EQ. And to answer your first question, the warm up, if they're less chatty, if they're answering direct, precise questions with yes, no, don't elaborate a lot, then you should be less chatty. Again, it goes back to speaking their language. And the more you understand and identify about EQ, personalities, things like that, the easier it is, no matter where yourself falls. If you're analytical, I'll try to be a little more chatty. If you're chatty, shut up and listen a little bit more. So for the warm-up for me, identifying those personality traits and then catering the presentation, and what's important to me is what's important to the customer.
There you go, right? So when you get, this is where, I don't know, I would love to take credit for developing the Inspired Sales System. I didn't develop it. I'm a big student of it. I understand it very, very well. And the more I dig in, the deeper and deeper, I peel the onion back and I realize just how much there is that you can dig out of this, right? So when I think about this, it makes a lot of sense. I go into a warm-up And part of that warm up, we generalize it and we say we're building rapport and we're getting to know the customer. But can you really get to know the customer? Can you figure out where they spend their time and their money? Can you figure out something about their personality? When you're sitting there having a conversation with the customer, what are the clues that you're taking in so that you really know this person? I mean, you really know them. You've got about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to just sit down and have a warm up with somebody and ask good questions that help you. Oh, I met this family and they just got back from Greece. And I might even ask them, oh, so for your vacation in Greece, did you plan everything out, or do you just fly by the seat of your pants? Just ask them, and it's sort of benign. It's just a question to keep the communication going, but it gives me so much information that helps me understand who it is that I'm talking to. Now, again, I'm not a psychological profiler, don't want to be a psychological profiler. So, obviously none of this, I'm sitting there for somebody in 10 minutes. It's not like I can help them solve their problems. That's not what I'm here for. But what I can do is I can tailor the way that I'm communicating with them. I can tailor the way that I present the company story to them. I can tailor the way that I present the product to them so that it speaks to them instead of just speaking at them. The company story is truly one of the greatest tools that you have. It is not just a checkbox. Oh, I did a company story. Good job. Move on to the next thing. It is not a checkbox. It is the greatest tool that you have in your arsenal to be able to help the customer make a good decision if you present it the right way. Well, what do I mean by presenting it the right way? I mean personalizing that company story. So what am I going to personalize it to? I'm going to personalize it to the customer's experience. I'm going to personalize it to the customer's personality. I'm going to personalize it to what the customer's interests are. Okay? That's why I say you can never use the same company story twice. It's impossible. If you do a good job with this, it's absolutely impossible to say it the same way twice. You can't. Because I'm never going to meet the exact same person again with the same experience and the same interest and the same personality. It has to be different every time. It makes this part of the sales system so much more fun and so much more interesting when I actually try to apply this. All right, so I also want to show you how I'm going to personalize the company's story based on their objections. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit about price conditioning. But we'll do that after the break. So you guys take 15 minutes. My clock says 12:10, so we'll come back at 12:25. And we're going to walk into the company story and really dive into what do I do with the objection that I got at the end of the warm-up. So take 15 minutes, use the restroom, refill coffee, whatever you got to do. And I'll see you back here when my clock says 12:25. Chris Voss was an FBI hostage negotiator.
Oh,
the name of the book is Never Split the Difference. That's the name of the book. Never Split the Difference.
Wow.
I'll put Chris Voss. And
is it a B or a V?
V.
Oh, I see it. Yep, just got it. Thank you.
Yep. So Chris Voss, in this book, so he was an FBI hostage negotiator, and he jokes, he's like, okay, I spent years as a hostage negotiator. So when I left the FBI, what do I do to go find a real job? Now what, right?
Right?
So,
Do you want fries
so he
with
wrote a
that?
book, right? So he wrote a book. And I mean, his whole thing is like the way that Harvard teaches business negotiation and the way that FBI teaches hostage negotiation are actually fairly similar. And so in, you know, in business negotiation, you often hear people talk about, well, we'll split the difference. You know, you want to buy it for 10,000, but I want to sell it for 12,000. We'll just meet in the middle at 11.
Right.
And Chris jokes, he's like, you can't do that in a hostage negotiation, right? You've got somebody, he goes, you know, you got somebody in New York City that's got 4 hostages, and he wants $1 million and a plane to Cuba. What are you going to do? Tell him, okay, I tell you what we'll do. We'll take 2 hostages. We'll give you a helicopter to New Jersey, and you can take an Uber from there. I mean, it's like, that doesn't work. You know, you can't split the difference in that kind of scenario. So you gotta come up with something else. So he walks through that, the psychology, and he walks through how he did hostage negotiations with the FBI and how it's so similar to business negotiations. And anyway, I think you would enjoy that one.
Thank you. I have it written down, and I think the mistake people make, Arlen, and I feel like you're speaking to this language, is when they're building a sports team, which is ultimately a business team, you don't hire like-minded people. You hire people that are blatant opposites. And I really feel like some of my best relationships from work have been, where my customer service rep has a very low EQ, and I almost annoy them with my high EQ, but we work incredibly well together,
Yeah.
Well, and to touch on like the opposite side of that, right? So my franchise owner is in his 40s and I just turned 21. So we've talked about before, like the professional level experience is majorly here. The life experience is here, so everything's different, but he took the chance on me because we're like-minded, but we're totally different at opposite ends of the spectrum. Right. And we both kind of believe and have the same goals that strive in the same way, but maybe we just take different routes to get there. So it's very interesting to watch our brains click because we've kind of started picking up on each other's lingo, but it's very much still like, hey, wait, why'd you say that? What's different? So we have those conversations all the time about, hey, go deeper into why you said that. That's different.
Alyssa, that's fantastic to have that perspective, because I feel like you'll just always learn and keep growing. And it goes back to that 1% every day. That just that 1%, it could be a 0.1% when you're talking over your lifetime, 0.01%, who knows, a nano percent. And I just think it's great team building when you try not to just try to stay away from like-minded people and work with people. And I think sales is the same way.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing when he hired me too was like, he came from a medical industry and I came from a flooring installation side. So he's like, it'll be cool to kind of bounce off of one another because he has more of the professional level and I have more of the install knowledge and the general process knowledge. So kind of blending those two, it's been a really nice pair. And I love learning from him. It's been great. I'm excited to just keep learning from him. Like, it's so fun. And his wife is great. She's a great teacher too.
It's so well said, Alyssa. You've got Arlen here, who's clearly engineering, probably loves cars and loves the technical, the engines, the numbers, the history, probably. Whereas I'm like sexy design, probably. Whereas I love cars, but from a different angle and a different passion, probably. And I can see, but Arlen has an openness. It might be a little higher on the openness to just recognize that it's other people bringing the two together that makes amazing things.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I love this conversation because it really does dovetail with where I'm headed, right? So several of you just recently went through the job interview process, right? And you had to answer a bunch of questions. You had to ask a bunch of questions. You had to figure out whether or not you were the right fit for your new boss. Some of you have just plunked down I'll use a technical term, a butt ton of money to buy a franchise, and you went through a due diligence process where you had to ask a bunch of questions and figure out, is this the right person for you? To be honest, I have not been an interviewee that many times in my life. But I have been an interviewer a lot. And one of the things that always impressed me about an interviewee was somebody that would come in and would ask somewhere in the interview, not necessarily the first questions they would ask, but somebody would ask, what are the 3 things that you need the most? So let's put it in this context. I'm a plant manager. I'm hiring a new engineer or a new engineering manager, and that engineering manager comes up to me and says, as part of the interview, and asks, what are the 3 biggest problems that you need me to fix first? Right? What are the 3 things that you need fixed first? Okay. And the reason I love this, if an interviewee asks that question, now what I'm expecting them to do is show me how they're going to solve those 3 things, right? I mean, it only makes sense. So let's say I tell the guy, well, we have a material scrap problem, and we've got one particular line that has an efficiency issue. Okay, and then maybe also for an engineering mindset, maybe there's something in packaging that we need to deal with. Okay, good. So I tell this potential engineering candidate, I say, we've got this scrap issue that we've got to deal with. We've got this machine efficiency issue that we're dealing with, and we've got a problem over on this packaging line. These are the top 3 things that I need solved. Well, I'm fully expecting that now this candidate is going to tell me about how somewhere in their past, they fixed a scrap problem, and how they've got some experience dealing with efficiency issues, and what has their experience been with packaging, because they're trying to impress upon me how they're going to solve these problems for me, right? I've done it in the past, I can do it again. Does that make sense? Okay, all right. This isn't rocket science. When you get into the company story, you have the opportunity to do the same thing. So when you ask the transition questions, you've gotten through the warm-up and you've had a great warm-up with somebody and you've gotten a chance to really get to know them, and now you've got all this stuff going on in your brain about they've gone to, they spent their honeymoon in Maui, and they met when they were in Greece together, and they're the type of person that just goes somewhere and they don't even plan it, it just happens. And so you're rolling all this stuff around in your head, and hopefully you've got a clipboard and you're taking some notes, and you've got all this stuff that's going through your head. And you ask them, how long have you been thinking about replacing your floor? Well, 2 or 3 weeks, okay, because they're not a planner, that makes sense. Well, what made you decide to do it today? Oh, I'm not going to do anything today, we're getting other estimates. What other objection could you get? You're going to get this one 90% of the time, but what other objection could you get? What made you decide to do it today? What other objections are out there?
I don't know if I love the product.
Okay, well, they haven't seen we're still in the warm-up, so they haven't seen anything yet.
I got to talk to my spouse.
I have other projects going on.
Yep.
Oh,
We're
yeah,
just
other
now
projects.
planning.
Talk to a significant other.
Okay, I'm just going to say other input, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so there's all these things that somebody could say. oh, we're not going to make a decision today. We've got, we're just starting out. We're just starting to do our research. We're just doing this or whatever, right? Whatever it is. Okay, great. Well, let's go take a look at the space together. And off we go, and we start walking around the house and we start looking at stuff together. Now, what do you do with this? They told it to you. What are you going to do with it? Well, I want to show you a strategy. I just want to show you a strategy on what you can do with it. Okay? So you get into the company story, and I'll just start with this slide. Why not? To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of having the script down here. The script is there to help you just at least understand what the main point of the slide is. It is obviously not there for you to memorize because, as we've just talked about, you got to personalize this anyway. So, but here's our main point. Our promise is to provide the best flooring experience in North America. So what if somebody told you, I'm getting other estimates? That's their big deal. All right, well, I want to hit this head on in this slide. And by the way, you can do this on any slide. I'm just using this as an example. And it's a tactic. This is a tactic that I'm teaching you called understand, alter, and convert, or UAC for short, okay? Understand, alter, and convert. So what am I going to do with this? I'm going to start this slide, and I might start this slide and say something like, you know, I understand, or, you know, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you were going to get other estimates. I understand that you're looking to get other estimates. Our promise is to provide the best flooring experience in North America. When customers learn this, they typically forego those other estimates as long as price is right. All right, now you can reword this, you know, as long as the money fits, as long as it fits the budget.
I like as long as Benjamins are smiling.
As long as the Benjamins are smiling, right, okay? So here's the point. Here's the way that this strategy works, or here's the way that this technique works. The first thing I do is I acknowledge that the customer has given me an objection, and I just want to repeat it back to them. Okay, I'm not afraid of it. You know, you mentioned earlier that you were looking at other estimates, and I understand that. A lot of times people get other estimates because they want to make sure that they're working with a company that actually has their best interest in mind. Well, at Floor Coverings International, our promise is to provide you with the best flooring experience in North America. And oftentimes, when my customers find that this is our core promise to them, they decide to skip those other estimates, and they choose us as long as we can get the budget right. And then I move on to the next slide, okay? I'm not going to do this on every slide. I'm going to pepper this in 2 or 3 times during the company story, but I'm going to use this as a way of taking their other estimates objection and converting it to a money objection. That's what I'm trying to do. Can I do anything about other estimates? No, I can't. Can I do something with the price? Yes, I can. I've got payment options, I've got time options, I've got other options in the band. We can move to a different scope. I've got 100 different things that I can do when it comes to price. So my goal in using this tactic is to get the customer to think, I'm not gonna tell them don't get other estimates. Quite the opposite. I'm gonna acknowledge the fact that, you know what? You mentioned earlier that you were looking at getting other estimates. I talk to customers all the time that want to get other estimates. It's a common thing. I get it. You know, when I've done projects at my home, I've gotten other estimates as well, because I want to make sure that I'm dealing with a company that is going to actually keep their word. Well, what is our word? At Floor Coverings International, our promise to you is that we are going to deliver the absolute best flooring experience in North America, and we stand by that promise. And a lot of times when my customers realize that that's what we stand for, they decide to choose Floor Coverings International and oftentimes even skip those other estimates as long as the money fits the budget.
Hey, Arlen, when you're doing
Yeah.
those quotes and you go into like your complete, your option and everything else, if you know that there is ahead of time, if you know that there's going to be an objection to price, do you always set like your gross margin? Like when you set your gross margin, do you leave it wherever it just defaults to, or will you bump it down a little bit if you know there's going to be an objection?
If anything, I bump it up.
Okay.
I mean, frankly, I don't. So I don't typically negotiate on price.
Okay.
There are exceptions. Okay, there are exceptions, but I don't typically negotiate the price, because if I give you a price of $10,000 and you want a lower price, and somehow I magically make it $9,000, well, what if I mean, if you could have done 9, why didn't you show me 9 to begin with?
You just cheapened your brand, not the project.
That's it. So instead, if I show you a $10,000 price and that's too much, okay, well, why don't we change the carpet and we'll go to this carpet and now I can do this for 8. There's a reason for the change, okay? If I just say, well, I'll go from 10 to 9 with no strings attached, well, okay, then that doesn't make any sense. Now, I will tell you that culturally, in different parts of the country, and with, I need to be careful how I say this, but with certain cultures that are out there, price negotiation is just part of their culture, and they have to do it.
I wasn't meaning after you showed them the price. I mean, was like before the end of it, like if you kind of get an idea, like, hey, this is 10,000 at a 50% margin. I know they're gonna question it. Should I just go ahead and put a 48% and drop it a few $100s?
Normally, no. I'm going to
Okay.
leave it at my 50 and I'm going to sell the value.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. So this is the way this little tactic works. It's really quite simple to understand. It's much harder once you actually try to do it. So let's open this up and pick a slide, any slide. Somebody throw a slide out.
The 6th one. I don't even know which one that is off the top of my brain right now, but the 6th one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's going to be the Better Business Bureau slide. Beautiful. Okay. So if my objection is, again, other estimates. All right. So let me just think about how I want to do this. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and pitch my slide. I'm going to understand estimates. You're going to watch me alter this and convert it to price. Okay. So let me just do this one, and then we're gonna practice this some. You know, one of the sad things about home improvement is, I'm sure you've heard of the Better Business Bureau. The Better Business Bureau did a study, and they found over 10.7 million complaints registered against this industry. And I'm embarrassed to say that we're part of that industry, but we're not part of those complaints. One of the interesting things about that study is that they found that 80% of the time, when people simply took the lowest bid, they had a major problem getting their jobs finished. Well, with Floor Coverings International, we don't have that issue, because we're going to bid the right amount for labor, the right amount for material, the right amount for customer service, so we get this job done the right time. Now, I know earlier you talked about getting other estimates. And I have a lot of customers that when I first meet them, they talk about getting other estimates, but oftentimes when they realize that they're not going to be the next statistic on the Better Business Bureau and that we're striving to be better in the industry, oftentimes they'll just skip getting those other estimates and they'll go with Floor Coverings International as long as we can make the money fit their budget. Okay, so in this case, what have I done? I pitched the slide and then I went right into this. And what I want to do, and this is the part that I'm trying to be very conscious of, the last words that I want to come out of my mouth on this slide have to do with money. So a lot of times customers decide not to bother with those other estimates as long as we can make the money right, as long as we can get it fit into their budget, as long as the Benjamins are happy, however you want to say it, right? If the customer has said something earlier to me about, well, we're going to get other estimates, you know, because we just want to make sure that the quotes are right. Well, then that's what I'm going to finish with. You know, customers oftentimes skip getting those other quotes as long as with Floor Coverings International, we can get the quote right. That's it, right? So if the customer has used those words, I want to use the customer's words. This is a tactic, it's a technique, but it's a technique that I want you guys to be able to practice a little bit with one another. So I'm going to send you guys into breakout rooms. We're not going to spend a lot of time there. I want to give you guys about 15 minutes. Pick a slide. I don't care which slide you pick. Pick a slide. Just for today, just use other estimates as your objection, because 90% of the time that's what it's going to be anyway. So just use other estimates as your objection and pitch a slide to your partner and use this technique. You know, pitch your slide, deal with the other estimate, and simply, you know, the one thing that I'm asking you as the customer evaluator to listen for is, do they finish with the money? Can they finish their little, whatever they do with that slide, can they finish it with the money? So let me get the breakout rooms set up here. While I'm doing this, can I share with you guys one of the most frustrating parts of my job? Okay, apart from having to be on Zoom all day. That's the most frustrating part.
High EQ people?
Nope, that's not it. No, the most frustrating part of my job is that I will have people that call me and say, hey, my close rate is at, 20%. Can you help me? And I'll say, okay, well, tell me what you're doing with the company story. Oh, I don't bother with the company story. I don't do that. Okay, well then, look, yeah, I want to help you because I want to be able to take what you're doing and take it to the next level. So if you're not doing the basics, then I can't help move you to the next level. I need you to just start doing the basics and then call me back, right? And well, we don't believe in the company story. We don't believe in a reference list. We don't believe in inspection. Okay, then I can't help you. I would love to help you, but I can't. I've got for those of you that are in Florida, Tom Wood has asked me to put together a little sales summit towards the end of July.
That's in Orlando, right, Arlen?
That's in Orlando, but Tampa and West Palm are going to be invited as well.
Right.
So I've been asked to put something together.
It's a brisket you're bringing, right? That's what you're bringing, the brisket?
Well, I might have to be let in the state. So, the sad thing is that when I go down there and we start talking about how to improve things, well, can I improve something in a day? I don't know. If we have a common language that we're starting with, I probably can.
You don't see him.
How's it going, Arlen?
Good.
The best teacher you guys got here, right here.
What's happening?
How's everything? I'm gonna see you at poker this year, right?
I expect to.
All right, I'll see you there. You guys have a good one. Arlen's a good teacher.
I'll be the one running around handing people chips.
Yeah, I'm the one collecting them.
That's right.
Have a good one, Arlen.
Good. How are you?
He said, have a good
I'll
one.
be good.
Yeah.
I did hear that though with Arlen. Flattery will get you everywhere.
Right.
And a company story.
And a good company story. Okay,
Good
I
company
think
story.
this will work. So take about 15 minutes in your breakout room to to practice with one another. All right. Everybody's coming back.
Berkeley, it's okay. We don't need to whine. We need to go let your sister in.
All right. Good stuff. So let's hear it. What are the great things that you heard? How did that feel? Is that something new to you? Is that something weird? Where are you guys at?
I had a good conversation with Amelia. Now I know she goes by Mel, which is pretty cool. She said that she has challenges gaining rapport when there's not a lot of visual cues in the house. And I said, that having no visual cues, when you have somebody like Arlen, I mean this lovingly, Arlen, when someone is bothered by their office, when their office currently looks like my fantasy of how an office might look, that's telling you volumes about that person. And it's telling you, in many cases, if they've actually lived there a while and they still have that minimalist approach, they're not giving you the obvious visual cues of the trophies or the kids' pictures or the whatever, that is telling you something about them, that they're more likely to be, wanting to hear about efficiencies. You might cue in on I said in that case, you might want to lean towards slides that are quantitative. So the BBB slide, for example, or speaking about supply chain on the slide where we talk about the efficiencies of our supply and logistics. Those are the kinds of things that might appeal to someone who keeps a house that looks like a museum, as opposed to a house that looks like a snow globe that's been shaken and turned upside down, which is like my house. But
well, the only reason the upstairs looks the way it does is because nobody actually lives upstairs anymore.
I'd still, if I were you, we're both go-kart guys. I'd have it filled with like old racing go-karts and stuff. So
there we go.
Kudos to
There we
you.
go.
Yeah.
What else? What else did you guys hear? What did you? How did that experience go?
Timothy and I had a fantastic conversation about finishing with the money, speaking their language back to them as far as an objective and other estimates. And Timothy, can you pull up the slide with the stars, the bullet point stars coming down?
Yeah.
And what Tim talked about was showing the customer this slide and then diving down deeper and literally, that's my lovely face. Wow, that's a huge head.
It is on the big screen.
That is a big melon. A lot of reflection, team.
All
So,
right.
thank
5
you.
stars.
So, my vision is horrible now. So then he basically went into here, talked about the services, and when he was talking about other estimates and pricing, he really showed the customer recently, actually, the screen where move heavy furniture, remove this, take this. And he was very transparent in the way showing the value of saying, you know what, we can compete, but we're not going to compete by cheapening our brand. We're going to compete by taking these services out because Chuck, Tim, give it to me. Chuck, say it for me, please. Chuck,
I just use truck in a truck.
Right. You want me just to be Chuck in a truck, stand in the van? Or do you want me to be, a high value delivering great value, high ROI services? And if you take out, I don't have to move your bed, but I planned on it. It's included in the price. I'm pretty sure Chuck's going to expect you to move your bed. So he wasn't focused on cheapening the brand for his owner. He was, and I don't say that because my first sales job, I immediately went to margin. Let's cheapen. and I was taught not to cheapen the brand. So Timothy's already there and recognizes that. And so when he was speaking back to the customer understood, okay, whether Timothy or I am not good for each other, at least I understand now that Timothy is going to bring more to the table and possibly the same product, which I could get from anywhere.
Nice. Nice. What else?
This is good information. I had a consultation yesterday where the client already told me that she was getting a quote from Empire, but the quote came $18,000 cheaper. So Mike was able to give me some pointers on what to follow up and inform the client, because there's no way she's getting stairs and she wants hardwood throughout the house, where my quote came in, I think, reasonable, but Empire came $18,000 cheaper. And in my mind, I'm thinking maybe I can cheapen the quote, but I'm not going to do that because quality is better than, my quality is.
Portia, do you know on average, and I know this because of the mystery shops that we do you know on average what Empire's gross margin is? Now, let me preface this before you answer. I don't know what Empire's actual gross margin is. I don't have an accountant there that's sending me numbers. What I do know is when we do a secret shop and we get information from the customer that this is what Empire's product was that they sold or that they tried to sell, I can cross-reference that to our product, and I know what our cost is for that product, okay? So if I take Empire's price using my cost, so it might be that Empire has a better cost or a worse cost, I don't know. But if I take my price, if I take Empire's price and compare it to my cost, do you know on average what Empire is actually selling flooring for? What their gross margin is?
20%.
Any guesses?
20%.
So I've got a 20. What else? What do you guys
Sounds
think?
like they're barely going to break even. I'd say 15.
15.
I
Who
think
else?
it's 28%.
I would have guessed
28?
25.
8 to
35.
No.
So
I was going to say
on-
maybe 40.
And
On average, Empire tends to be about 58% margin. 58.
Wow.
And that's comparing it to our cost. So if Empire happens to get a better cost on something, they might actually be higher than that. 58. I can guarantee you that your quote has some things in it that the Empire quote doesn't have in it. Your quote probably has a better material, a better quality product than the Empire quote does, because if you take our quote and Empire's quote and put them apples to apples, Empire is quoting at a 58-point margin. This is not a game about reducing your margin. It is a game about figuring out how you can estimate better or help the customer see the value in what your
Understand the
proposal
value.
is versus what Empire's is.
Okay.
A very, very long time ago, I worked for Empire.
Is it proper to ask, like, to see what the others
Sure.
estimate?
Yeah,
You can,
I
but the
asked her
problem
that.
with-
She,
The
What do they
problem
have
with
on
Empire is Empire won't actually give you a copy of the quote.
no.
They
Yeah,
won't.
she didn't have a copy of the quote, but she gave me the material that they quoted her on. So, and I was like, well, I'm giving you performance hardwood and they're giving you LVP. And then
Oh,
in
well,
addition to, I was like,
Oh,
it's not
hey, that-
apples
that's
to
right there.
apples. It's not apples. And
There-
then two, I was like, there's no way when they're doing stairs that their quote is that much. So yeah.
So another thing that Empire does, because I worked for them a really long time ago, they will not quote how much it's going to cost to flow to floor until the installer gets there. So cost gets added on because they're not installers, so they don't know what to do. That's what they've told everybody to do. So any extra stuff that gets added, and they add almost every job when you're talking a hardwood LVP tile job. Carpet's the only one they don't add a lot to. But when it comes to the quotes for LVP and hardwood, any floating gets added on the back end.
Yeah,
You
this
know-
is good information. I have to go back and talk to her, so hopefully I can win her over.
another thing that Portia and I were talking about, and because I do run into this from time to time, in fact, where, so basically when I will do my company tour, when I'm getting into that part, if they have already told me insistently that they are getting other quotes, I'll be honest, I have not been able to stop anybody in their tracks where they were like, you know what, no, I'm not going to do it. I haven't been able to do it. But I have won bids because I will kind of almost buyer beware the customer, kind of like what you were saying about, Empire. I'll never mention my competitors by name. I'll never badmouth a competitor, but I will at the end of it, when I give them the quote, be like, okay, well, whether you do this with me or with somebody else, make sure that you are comparing apples to apples. Make sure that everything is in the quote. I was like, there's a lot of companies out here that are going to come out and tell you, oh, well, we have to do $4,000 worth of subfloor prep now that we didn't put your quote, or, oh, we have to add this, that, and the other to the quote now because we didn't have that in the quote. I was like, and then the one that you thought you were getting a great deal on, now suddenly they're at my price or more for lesser product and lesser, services. And so I have had people come back on me on the back of that one and be like, yeah, Mike, you were still a little bit higher, but you were right. They came back and they hit me with, X, Y, and Z charges, or told me that this, that, and the other was not in the quote, and would prefer to go with you. But that's honestly about the best I've been able to do with getting somebody who's insistent upon, I'm getting my 3 estimates, you're number 2 or you're number 1. That's about the best that I can do to get them to slow down without, I haven't been able to stop them in the tracks.
Well, right now, you guys don't know this industry. I mean, some of you do, but you guys don't know this industry yet, right? So Portia's beating her head against the wall because somebody gives her an Empire quote that's $18,000 higher, and she doesn't know what to do with that. Okay, well, this is where having a group like this is so important. Reach out inside the group me to this group. Look, Richard's there. I've known Richard Richard, when was the first time we met? 6, 7 years ago? It's been a long time. And I know Richard would be happy to get on a phone call with you and help you understand this is how Empire quotes, right? Do secret shops in your area. Secret shop Empire. Have them come to your house. You might cover up the Floor Coverings International stuff, but have them come to your house and do a quote. And then you take and do a quote in your house and see where they're the same and where they're different. Walk through that process. Secret shopping your competition is huge. Understand what they're doing in your area. If you don't feel comfortable having them come in your house, have a family member call and you show up to be that aunt that wants to have some input. Whatever you got to do, but you got to know what people around you are quoting. You got to understand the market around you.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Richard, I won't be giving you a call.
That's fine.
I want to share with you guys another technique, okay? I'm hesitant to do this because you guys have learned so much this week already, but I think this group can handle it, so I'm going to go ahead and share this with you. And it's another technique that I use in the company story, and it's a price conditioning technique, okay? And you can do it on any slide. I'm going to come to the how do you choose slide because I love this slide. So think about where we are in the process. You've had a warm up, you inspected the space, you had a chance to measure, you've been out to the van, you've drawn everything up, you've come up with options. What do you know right now that the customer does not know?
Price.
Yep, you know your price, okay? So John, let's say that you put together a price for this, and your price doesn't want to go away. So you've got your price set, and maybe your option 1 is I don't know, it's $12,000, and maybe your option 2 you've got sitting at I don't know, $9,800. And maybe your option 3 is somewhere around $7,500. I don't know. I'm making numbers up. Okay. Okay. Whatever. You know these numbers, but your customer doesn't know them yet.
Right.
Right? You know them, but your customer doesn't know them yet. So this is a little price conditioning tactic. John, how do you choose? There's so many different flooring companies that are out there, and I know it's it seems crazy to think that there's so many different companies that can provide you with flooring. And you might have somebody just a chuck in a truck show up and install stuff for you. You might have another company like us. You might have a big box store. There's so many that are out there. On the one hand, you might have a handyman that comes in here and they may offer you a price that, who knows, is as low as $5,000. And you may have another company that shows up and they might be $15,000 or $17,000 for a project like this. Boom. So let me just stop there for a moment. What have I done?
Yeah. You've gone under the minimum and over the top. I saw how you did it.
I have bookmarked this, and I said somewhere around 5K, and I said somewhere, 15 to 17K. So when I show the customer, hey, I've got a price of 12K as my option one, they're like, well, yeah, that fits right in the range you said. And all I'm doing is I'm just leaving that little, it's just a little seed that I'm leaving as I'm working through my company story. So what am I going to do? I'm going to pick 1 or 2 slides to do this on. I'm not going to do it on every slide. So if you think about the company story as a whole, right, somewhere in there, I want to do an understand, alter, and convert, maybe 2 or 3 slides. Somewhere in there, I want to do a price conditioning, maybe on a couple of slides, and I can even combine the two. I don't have to just do one slide or another slide. I can combine the two. I absolutely want to personalize this. And I want to deliver it in a way that actually makes sense for this customer's personality. So this is a highly customized company story. And when you get to that point, then the company story starts to work for you instead of just being a check mark. At the end of the day, I say this all the time, sales is nothing more than the transfer of belief. If you believe it, you have a chance of having your customer believe it. If you don't believe it, there's no way you're going to convince somebody else to believe it. It just doesn't work. You got to believe it first. You got to believe that you're worth it. You've got to believe that the services that you're providing are absolutely worth it. You've got to believe that when you say we're a 5-star company, that you actually are a 5-star company. You have to believe it, because the reality is you are a 5-star company. Floor Coverings International has the highest customer service rating of any flooring company that's out there, at least regional or bigger. There might be some local mom and pop shop that's got a 5-star in your town. I know there's one here in my town. Okay, great, that's fine. At least from a regional basis or bigger, Floor Coverings International has the highest customer service rating of any other flooring store that's out there. And you should absolutely be proud of that. And you should be able to show a price with your chest held out and your head held high and know that I'm worth this and this is right, assuming that you've actually put a bid together that's correct. I mean, if technically it's not right, that's a different issue. I will also say this. Purchasing is an emotional experience. Purchasing is an emotional experience. I want to show you guys, and we're gonna wrap up with this. I want to show you a couple of different commercials. These are short, like most commercials are. But I want to show you a couple of commercials. This is an old commercial. This is 2013. This is a 10-year-old commercial, but it still resonates. If we can share the sound, get the full experience here.
I
You
remember
got,
this.
any of the Trunk Monkeys ones, Arlen?
No.
Oh, those are great.
Right.
Coming from AT&T, I remember this commercial.
little Christmas. Let your heart be light. From now on, our troubles will be out of sight. Hang a shining star upon the highest bough, and have yourself a merry little Christmas now.
All right, so that was, stop. All right, that was Apple's commercial in 2013 to introduce the new iPhone. It doesn't, they don't even hardly show the phone, for crying out loud. By contrast, okay, just by contrast, take a look at this one. And this is a new commercial. This is a newer commercial. Hurts to have to bounce so many times around. That's all right.
To the Jersey Shore, they ran their sacred mission to help the poor unfortunates oppressed by the prohibition.
All right, let's back this up. Let's do this again.
Long-lasting battery life.
All right. So in one of those commercials, it is, I mean, the Apple commercial is nothing more than a heartstring pull. That's it. I mean, they don't even hardly show the phone. And in the Samsung Galaxy commercial, it's nothing more than here's a list of features. And I mean, really, which one of those is actually going to be a more effective commercial? Let's be real. Yes, I realize that I like to see a list of features as well, but even me, I'm going to be pulled towards that iPhone commercial more than I'm going to be pulled towards that Samsung commercial. Sales is an emotional thing, dudes. It really is. And so when you're going through your company story, you've got to be able to have some emotion. You've got to be able to show some passion. You've got to be able to personalize it. This is why we practice it. This is why I continue to tell you guys, you got to get 1% better every day. Because if you just go through the company story like here's a PowerPoint that I got to do, and just blow through it, well, then you might as well not, honestly, because it's probably going to do you more harm than good. But if you actually use this tool as a really, really good tool, put some emotion in it, really tailor it, really personalize it, really use it for what it's there for, my gosh, it's the best tool you've got in your tool belt. Even more so than a long list of features, advantages, and benefits on the flooring. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. At the end of the day, you guys are going to realize this is a sales and marketing company, and you just happen to sell floors. It's not about the floor.
Arlen, you keep talking about sales tools and team. I just want to go back to every time somebody says something and I think, oh, that's a great idea, or oh, that's a great statement. I don't use it every time, but I add it to my Batman utility belt. And when I need it in a fight, it's there. And so it's really tailoring each tool to the moment you're in. Sorry to interrupt, Arlen.
100%, 100%. All right. So guys, I know that a lot of you have you've got a 2 o'clock, at least the franchisees that are here, you've got a 2 o'clock meeting with a coach. I want to make sure I give you a chance to grab something to eat real quick. Some of the design associates, you guys have 2 o'clock Eastern time appointments and stuff that you're going for. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys take a break now. Do what you need to do, and I will see you back here at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we'll wrap up. I promise you that 4 p.m. Eastern, if you're back on time and we can get started right at 4, I promise to keep that as quick as possible, normally no more than 45 minutes, and maybe even less than that. Okay, so we'll keep it tight. If you guys can be back on right at 4. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit.